Can you believe the scene before your eyes? A massive wave of trash pours down like a storm. The whole city instantly turns into a living hell. Cars crawl forward inside the flood of garbage. Metal crashes mix with the screams of people on the street. Every moment feels like a sign that doomsday is coming. What's even more shocking is the Titanic wreck that sank for 114 years under the sea suddenly appears in the middle of a busy city street. What on earth is happening? We have to start from a seemingly normal fishing trip. The sea was calm and peaceful that day. A crew member casually tossed a plastic bottle into the water. When they pulled up the fishing net, a sharp and terrifying howl burst out. It seemed like some kind of creature was wrapped inside the net. The crew was instantly on high alert. The scene shifts to the nearby coastline. A team of well-trained military personnel arrives at a small fishing village. After multiple rounds of inspection, they finally see the objective of this mission, the mysterious creature the fishermen had hauled up earlier. After killing it cruelly, they hoped they could make some money, so they brought the body back to the village. The military placed great importance on this deep-sea monster. In myth it is known as the sea demon. But from a modern biological perspective, it belongs to an upright cavity bone species, commonly referred to as a waterman. Normally this wouldn't alarm the top levels of the military, until they discovered a pearl inside the creature's lower jaw. It wasn't naturally formed, it was deliberately embedded like an ornament. For thousands of years only humans have done this. Clearly this waterman possesses a high level of intelligence. The Black Commander is thrilled like he found a new world. He decides to conduct a full deep scan on the creature. After everyone leaves, only Barkley slowly approaches the waterman's remains. He silently offers a prayer in his heart. No matter what, it is still a life that has passed away. Later Barkley and the others bring special equipment to the shoreline. This was specifically requested by the commander to send a translation pulse into the deep sea. He hoped to establish contact with the intelligent waterman tribe. When night grew silent and deep, the soldiers guarding the waterman's body were chatting and joking casually, but the moment they turned around, they sensed something wrong. The solid concrete floor was suddenly leaking water. Stepping on it felt like sinking into a swamp. The female soldier had no time to react. Half of her body was already swallowed by it. Her partner panicked and scratched his head anxiously, wanting to save her but unable to do anything. A black hand suddenly dragged him into the swamp as well. Ripples spread across the water surface. A dark shadow shot out at high speed and removed the waterman's corpse hanging above. In an instant the base alarm blared loudly. Sleeping soldiers rushed out of their tents. When they hurried to the scene, they realized the waterman's corpse along with the two guards had completely vanished. The soft muddy ground beneath them returned to a hard solid floor again. Barkley noticed something strange under his feet. He even pulled a chair out from the ground. The commander tried using his radio to call the two missing soldiers, but instead he heard a faint sound beneath his feet. He repeated it again in disbelief and confirmed the radio was buried under the floor. They dug through the dry dirt with their fingers and saw a twisted arm exposed below. Barkley sat by the shore for a long time, unable to calm down. It was his first time facing a corpse directly. The fear in his chest refused to fade. The commander however was full of confusion, because they belonged to the UN Special Intelligence Task Force, a unit dedicated to handling mysterious cases that science cannot explain. Normally they should be used to bloody and bizarre scenes like this. Barkley finally had to confess the truth. He was actually just an office worker in the department. The original field agent went on vacation, so Barkley was dragged in at the last minute to fill the role. The reason he even appeared on the backup list was because during the registration that day, his colleague had to rush off for childbirth support, so Barkley was called over to fill in. Now he regrets it so much. His guts are turning green. He has had no professional training at all and is completely unprepared for such dangerous situations, but the commander told him history is built from countless accidents. Besides, every great event happens under the witness of office workers. Every word he said was trying to convince Barkley to stay. The man sat there speechless for a long while. The female captain quickly tried to comfort him. The waterfolk are not mindless killing beasts. They existed on Earth long before humans appeared. They simply stayed in deep-sea hibernation for nearly 1,000 years, but for some reason they have been appearing more frequently lately. In fact, the task force had long discovered the waterman's existence. They just kept it secret from the public. In a certain sense, if the waterfolk had not fallen into hibernation, humans might not have become the rulers of Earth. Suddenly a teammate shouted in shock. A waterman had unexpectedly shown himself. All the soldiers immediately went into full alert while Barkley returned to his actual duty, taking out his notebook to record everything. As both sides stood in a tense standoff, the commander strode forward, signaling the soldiers to lower their weapons and telling the tech team to activate the translator. The commander was the first to express goodwill, hoping for peaceful negotiations with the waterfolk. The waterman made strange sounds from his throat. After machine translation, it turned out he was blaming humans for killing his kin. You humans killed us. The commander immediately argued back, saying the waterfolk also killed 2 human soldiers, so that makes them even, and now they should sit down and talk properly. but suddenly the waterman became agitated. The translation showed he wanted to negotiate with all of humanity. Just as everyone was trying to figure out what he meant, the alarms on their phones suddenly went off. It turned out the waterfolk had already appeared simultaneously all over the world, carrying the aura of rulers returning to their throne as if they were the true owners of this planet. Their public appearance immediately caused an uproar across the globe. To quickly understand their intentions, the British government seized the opportunity and within a few days built a water channel system connected to the city canal inside the Empire State Building. This place would become the first location for an official meeting between humans and the waterfolk. Kate, the supreme commander of the Joint Intelligence Task Force, was chosen as the chief representative for the negotiations. Although they did not belong to any specific nation, they now stood here representing the shared will of all life on Earth. Before the negotiation began, technicians opened the gates and started filling water into the pipeline. When the tank was fully filled, everyone saw through the monitors several waterfolk swimming rapidly toward the hall. The first waterman appeared like a ceremonial guard, standing upright with solemn dignity. Then two massive deep-sea beasts followed, their faces fierce and intimidating. And finally the chief representative for the negotiation arrived. Under the expectant gaze of the entire hall, the waterman slowly revealed her figure. She looked far more human-like than the others, even her expressions were richer, clearly showing high intelligence. Some sharp observers also noticed the waterfolk could breathe freely even without being submerged. This amphibious ability meant they had the power to move onto land. The hall immediately erupted into whispers. Human representative, Dr. Jonathan, spoke up first. He welcomed the waterfolk's arrival and was just preparing to give a long speech when the waterfolk representative cut him off abruptly. No one expected she had learned human language. It seemed she understood humans far more than they had imagined. Dr. Jonathan hurriedly changed the topic. He said they had prepared a gift for the waterfolk. It was a plant from the highest point on Earth, a dwarf rhododendron from Mount Everest, giving off a unique natural scent. Jonathan originally wanted to use this gift to show the superiority of land dwellers. But the waterfolk representative also prepared a gift for the humans. It turned out to be inactive waterman eggs. Her tone was filled with anger, saying these children could have grown up happily, but instead they suffocated in human oil waste, poison, and sewage. The doctor on stage panicked instantly, stammering as he tried to explain that humans were already trying to clean the oceans. But the waterfolk representative replied angrily, saying she no longer wished to negotiate with him. Then she pointed at Barkley, who was sitting in the back taking notes. Everyone turned toward him in unison, not understanding why the waterfolk would choose such an insignificant person. But then they saw the representative tap her finger. On the screen appeared footage of Barkley praying for the waterman's body. She believed that only someone who respects the dead was qualified to speak for humanity in negotiations. Even Barkley himself could not believe that a quiet unknown office worker like him had suddenly become the focus of the entire planet. Commander Kate grew worried about this, because if Barkley said anything wrong, it could ignite a war between the two species. Yet the waterfolk's attitude was unusually firm, saying they only wanted to hear Barkley's true thoughts. This ordinary man was forced to stand before the waterfolk on behalf of humanity. He didn't even have a proper suit prepared. The waterfolk representative emphasized again, "I choose you because of your humanity and compassion." Barkley shook his head, saying he could not represent all of humanity. After all, he was just a tiny insignificant person. The waterfolk representative understood instantly. She emphasized that this negotiation must take place under the witness of the entire world, so people understand that ordinary individuals also deserve a voice. But as the negotiation leader, Kate had far too many factors to consider. She could not allow the entire negotiation to be completely exposed to the public. And Barkley could not just say whatever came to his mind. So on the next day of negotiations, Kate only approved 50 reporters to enter and film and strictly banned any live broadcasting. Barkley was repeatedly reminded that he could only read exactly what appeared on the screen, absolutely must not improvise anything. As the huge pipeline was filled with water again, the waterfolk envoy arrived right on schedule. Barkley was much calmer than yesterday, following the teleprompter smoothly as he greeted them, but just as he was about to read the human demands, the waterfolk representative suddenly interrupted. She said she wanted a glass of water and specifically emphasized that it must come from the river. The experts in charge could not possibly refuse such a simple request, so they immediately sent a squad of soldiers to the riverside. A cup filled with murky yellow river water was soon delivered into Barkley's hand. The waterfolk representative then made her next request. She wanted Barkley to drink the river water. Looking at the yellow floating particles in the cup, his expression became extremely conflicted. At that moment, the monitor displayed the latest instruction. Barkley suggested the water should be sterilized before drinking. Then he began to mention the pollution issue, but the waterfolk representative cut him off. She did not want to hear political excuses, and Barkley should not become a puppet on strings. The man stayed silent for a moment, finally making his decision. He removed his earpiece and spoke from his heart. He said humans were foolish and selfish. For the sake of tiny short-term profits, they pushed the planet closer to collapse. Even during their negotiations, countless factories were still running, discharging wastewater straight into rivers and oceans. His words earned high praise from the waterfolk representative. I think you are my favorite human. Barkley thought he had performed perfectly, but when he turned around, he saw the entire hall frozen in dead silence. The negotiation even had to be temporarily paused. Barclay's heartfelt confession had undoubtedly pushed humanity into an extremely disadvantageous position. The task force decided to regain ground elsewhere. They began studying the waterfolk's physical traits. Even the dead waterman eggs were examined. Everyone had already witnessed how waterfolk could instantly synchronize information across their entire species. They suspected this was due to a network structure similar to oceanic mycelium, more like a kind of natural hive mind. Kate suspected the pearls around their necks might play an important role. It was clear this species still had many mysteries worth exploring. But the negotiation between the two sides had to continue. This time humanity chose to take the initiative. Barclay promised that before the year 2065, humanity would achieve a 50% reduction in pollution and afterwards accelerate environmental recovery exponentially, but the waterfolk representative felt this was far too slow. Because every day her kin continued to die from the terrible environment, she could not accept waiting another 40 years. Barclay quickly explained that environmental restoration required huge amounts of supplies and manpower and could not be achieved overnight, but the waterfolk representative questioned the determination of human leaders to repair the environment. Saying they were still far from being willing to pay any price, Barclay tried to explain further when the waterfolk representative suddenly looked up. The entire city went dark without warning. Residents thought a storm was coming, but what fell from the sky was not rain. It was a storm of countless plastic bags, bottles, cans, and tangled fishing nets. The entire city instantly fell into chaos. Even the negotiation between the two sides inside the Empire State Building had to be forced to a halt. Residents outdoors fled in terror in all directions, unable to comprehend why the trash that had been dumped into the ocean was now falling from the sky above the city. In less than half an hour, the once clean streets were buried under piles of garbage. Looking around, the entire city had turned into a kingdom of trash, and the most unbelievable thing was the Titanic wreck that had sunk over a century ago suddenly appeared in the center of New York City. As major cities across the world collapsed into paralysis, world leaders kept issuing statements, calling everyone to unite and resist this unprecedented crisis for humankind. Not long after, with the efforts of all sides, negotiations between humans and the waterfolk resumed once more. Barclay's speech still sounded very official, calling on the waterfolk to remain calm and restrained. Any impulsive action would bring huge losses to both sides. The waterfolk's reply was merciless. She said she merely returned what belonged to humans. Barclay suppressed the anger in his heart, knowing that his wife and child almost died in the rain of garbage. The teleprompter then displayed Kate's instruction, which was to request the waterfolk representative to sign a ceasefire agreement. Humanity did not wish to wage war against any species. The waterfolk representative nodded, promising they would no longer cause trouble for humans in the future, but only if humans agreed to her three conditions. First, they must immediately stop polluting the oceans and rivers. Second was to officially divide the living territories of humans and waterfolk. Humans originally thought the ocean was vast and boundless, so granting part of it to the waterfolk would not be difficult, but the waterfolk representative declared that all oceans and waterways belonged to them. Human navigation would be forbidden. Even the airspace above the oceans would be off limits. This instantly enraged all the national representatives, especially island countries and nations reliant on imports and exports. Losing both sea transport and air transport was no different from sentencing those nations to death. The waterfolk representative let out a sharp screech, instantly silencing the entire negotiation hall. Barclay hurriedly spoke up, explaining that everyone was simply too emotional. The waterfolk representative's voice returned to a calm female tone, reminding everyone that she had only stated two conditions so far, and that the third condition was the real key. She expressed strong dislike toward this skyscraper built of steel and concrete and demanded that the next meeting location be chosen by her. Everyone could not help looking toward the coordinates on the screen. It turned out to be the deepest trench on Earth. Even humanity's most advanced manned submersible could only descend to half of that depth. When the waterfolk representative asked for an answer, Barclay impulsively agreed before he could stop himself. And that concludes episodes 1 and 2 of Battle of Land and Sea. If you enjoyed it, please stay tuned and we'll see you in the next episode.